So yes, I usually preach on the gospel, and the gospel will be hinted in what I'm saying today, but because we're going through this 5-week series in which the Old Testament is walking us through these covenants, we're going to focus on the first lesson this morning, which features the end of that well-known story about Noah. At this point that we heard this morning that Cheryl read for us, the flood is over. The land is dry. The animals have left the ark, sent out 2 by 2, or whatever number it really is. There's different versions in there. To be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And God makes a promise. As I said, a covenant is the Bible word for that. It's almost like a business transaction that God says, I'll do this and you do this. And God has made this covenant. It is to never to destroy all life on earth with a flood ever again. We've got rainbows, beautiful. Animals, I think of the soft, fluffy kind more. I don't know, there's giraffes coming out of there too. And we have beautiful promises. Definitely sounds like a happy ending to this story. Except, is it really happy for everyone? Certainly, there were bad guys destroyed, wicked people who made life so bad for many others. They were definitely destroyed in this flood. But was every single person except for Noah and his family really so evil that they deserved complete destruction? Even if that were the case, why did God have to destroy almost all of the land animals too? Saving only a few on the ark. There was a lot of suffering that went on in that time. Doesn't sound like a happy ending after all. So maybe we should go back to the very beginning of this story a little bit and unpack it a little more. Back to Genesis chapter 6, verse 5 and 6 that say, "The Lord saw that the wickedness of humankind was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made humankind on earth, and it grieved him to his heart." A lot of people do think that this story is about the wrath of God. Wrath meaning a God angry and vengeful, a God ready to smite humankind for their wrongdoings. But we don't entirely hear that kind of language in the verse we just read. What we hear is not focusing on an angry God seeking revenge and retribution. Instead, we have a grieving God, filled with regret. And the Lord was sorry that he made humankind on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. Why was he sorry? Did he regret ever making humans in the first place? Or was he sorry at how badly things were turning out for us? We don't know for sure. All we know is it was apparently too much for God to bear. God had had enough. This had to stop. Now, I don't know if you've ever had to do the very difficult thing of putting down a beloved family pet. It's an awful thing. They've gotten too old or sick. Sometimes they've gotten too dangerous. And there's nothing more that can be done for them. It's such a terrible decision to have to make when you get to that point. And in your anguish, in your darkest moments in that moment, you might think to yourself, why did I ever get a dog in the first place? It leads to nothing but grief in the end when you get these pets that live shorter lifespans than we do. In your pain, you might also ask, why do they have to get sick? Why do they get old so fast? Why does it have have to end this way? Is it possible that this is how God felt at the start of this Noah story, these earlier moments? Grief at what had happened to his beloved people, his beloved creation. Regret that he had made them and had to watch them suffer and do terrible things to themselves and to each other. Terrible things to the land, to the sea, to the air, and to their fellow creatures. Sometimes, after a pet dies, we go out and get a new one. It's nice to have another dog or a cat, and you love them with all your heart. But they don't replace the others. You never stop loving the ones you've lost. And so here is God at the end of the Noah story. He too is getting new animals and new people. Those few creatures that made it through the flood, those few humans in Noah's family, they are going to go out and they're going to make a new population. And that's nice. But has it solved all the problems? Not really. Those new people, they too are still going to screw up and sin and do evil things. They will still have accidents, still get old and sick and die. Just like when you get a new pet and you know it's going to grow up and pass away too, just like the old one did. And even getting the best of new puppies won't bring your old dog, your old faithful companion back from the dead. Wait a minute. Hold on. Who are we really talking about here? Who is the main character in this drama? It's not Noah. It's not the animals. It's God. And when we reach the end of this flood story, with all of its sadness and regret and destruction, we see that what appears to be an ending is not the end at all. First of all, God does indeed keep life going, even after all of that terrible flood, through this tiny group of animals and people. But he does something even more than that, so much more. He says this, "As for me, I am establishing my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you. I establish my covenant with you, that never again will all life be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall a flood destroy the earth." This is God saying, no, never again will I destroy my creation in order to fix my creation. I'm giving up on that option forever. See, I am hanging up that bow. Now that thing is a pretty thing to us, but it was this kind of bow. It was a weapon of war to kill. He says, I'm hanging up that bow forever. And in fact, I'm hanging it. Look how God hangs it in the sky. Not hanging it upside down with the bow like this. I know scientists out there, that's not possible. But still, go with me on this. It doesn't go like this, seemingly pointing back at us. So if you screw up again, I'm ready to use this weapon to pick it up. Instead, it's facing upward. It's cocked and pulled, so that if and when it needs to be used again, where will it go? To God Himself. To God Himself. Wow. And for that purpose alone it will be used. Otherwise it is hung up in the sky. To remind God, it says, that never again will I make destruction and death the permanent reality and the causal method to stop evil in this world. So, what does God do instead? He also says he wants to do more than just erase and start over. He wants to do more than just make new animals and people and forget about the old ones. You see, in his love, he is going to be there forever. And he never wants to forget anything that he has made. He wants to make all things new. I think I've said this before, haven't I? He doesn't want to make all new things. He wants to make all things new. What can he do? What alternative can he offer? The only answer that a loving, caring, all-powerful God can give. The only answer that is the best and final answer to sin and to evil and to revenge and to regret and to devastation and to grieving and to loss and to death. Resurrection! Eternal life. New creation. And the end of the Noah story, well, it's the beginning of that story. It's going to be a long road through the many lives of the Bible, through the many trials and tribulations with people taking one step forward and 10 steps back, and hope and faith and love getting bashed and beaten at every turn. A long journey from the waters of the flood through the waters of the Red Sea, with Moses escaping slavery in Egypt and wandering in the desert for years, 40 years. A rough road for Jesus from his baptism through his ministry, up to Jerusalem, up to that old rugged cross where the people pick up the weapon and shoot. That's right. But in that moment, in that crossroads moment, God said, things may look bad. They may be looking worse than ever. Evil may seem to be winning. This ending doesn't seem to be good. But I will make good. Make good on my promises. Because my people, my creation, will never again bear the ultimate cost forever. Pay the ultimate price. I'm going to do that. Then, I'm going to raise them up. Just like Jesus. I'm going to bring them out of the drowning waters, the dark earth, and lift them into the fresh, clean air. And they will live again. With all of the things that they love. All of the people that they love. Even the animals that they love. I said all life, didn't I? And I make a promise, says God. And I keep that promise. A promise begun out of the waters of the flood. A promise made and kept in the death and resurrection of Jesus. A promise bestowed on all of us in the waters of baptism. That promise points to the true end of our story. And throughout this season of Lent, we'll keep the end in mind. Knowing God has built us an ark made of 2 wooden timbers. And with Christ as our captain, he will steer us straight home.